Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well on this Wednesday afternoon. We're going to do two Rashis from the fourth Aliyah in this week's Parsha of Nitzavim, a beautiful Parsha, Parsha which definitely hits the right time of the year, hits a lot of the themes that we're thinking about and going through around this time as we lead up to Rosh Hashanah. Very appropriately, there's always significance the way the Parsha correlates with current events, but certainly around this time of year, Kisava, Nitzavim, Vayelech, Azinu, all these beautiful parshios about the essence of what it means to keep the Torah and to be part of the Jewish people. And our parsha in the fourth Aliyah, we have one of the parshios about tshuva. The previous couple of Aliyahs we've been studying the last few days talk about the bris, the covenant between God and the Jewish people, about the hopes that God has for us keeping the Torah that he gave us and adhering to the laws of the Torah that he gave us. And we all agreed to that at this point in the last day of Moshe Rabbeinu's life on the banks of the Yarden. But Hashem knows and predicts to Moshe Rabbeinu that one will not always be the case. Jewish people as a whole, certainly as individuals, but even as a whole, will stray, will go off the path, will break the terms of the covenant, and will unfortunately be punished with some of the klalos that are part of this covenant, part of this agreement, which will be taken at Har Grizim and Har Eva. And the Torah in the fourth Aliyah describes how even after we go off into exile, and even after we suffer some of the klalos, and even after we're punished, so to speak, with distance from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're going to come back. We're going to do tshuva. There's a guarantee of national tshuva. There's an eternal relationship between God and the Jewish people that can never be broken. And therefore, no matter how far we stray, we will absolutely always come back. When all of these things happen to you, habracha, the haklala, the good and the bad, shenasati lefanecha, that I put before you today, v'hashivosa el bavecha, you should return to your heart. You should do tshuva. Wherever you might be, off in exile, in the midst of any land of non-Jews. And at that point, v'shavta ad Hashem elokecha, you should return all the way to God. V'shamata v'kolo, you should listen to his voice. Kechol asher anochi mitzavcha hayom, all the things that I command you today. Atah uvanecha b'chol vavcha b'chol nafshecha, you, your children, with your heart, with your soul. V'shav Hashem elokecha es shavuscha v'richamecha, and God will return your returns. He'll return your exiles. He'll bring you back to the land of Israel. He'll bring you back to him and have mercy upon you. V'shav, and you will return. V'kibetzcha mikol amim asher afitzcha Hashem elokecha shama. Part of the promise is not only that we will do tshuva, but that God will respond to our tshuva, God will accept our tshuva with his compassion, and God will ingather the exiles from the four corners of the earth. Even if we're at the ends of the earth, ends of the sky, from there God will take us, from there God will gather us in, etc. All these beautiful, beautiful psukim. Rashi notes that there's something strange and not quite accurate about the language of Pasuk Gimel. God is talking about bringing us back, right? And it says, "V'shav Hashem elokecha es shavuscha." God will be shav, your shavus, your return. Rashi says, "Kumo v'shavti es shavus b'nei Amon." Okay, it's about returning, but hayalo lichtov. It should have said, "V'heshiv es shavuscha." In the active form, God will cause you to be returned. Heishiv, God will return you. God will return you, rather than God will return. Right? The subject of the return, the object of the return is the Jewish people, I should say. God is going to cause the Jewish people to return. But instead it says, V'shav Hashem, as if God is the one returning. God is not the one returning. God is the one causing the Jewish people to return. Should have said v'heshiv. God will cause you to return, not v'shav, and God will return. Rabboseinu lamdu mikan. From the fact that it doesn't say that, it says v'shav, as if God is returning, we learn sheshchina b'galus, that if the Jewish people are in exile, God is in exile too. Kiviyachol shruya im Yisrael b'tzaras galutam. God, it's as if God is sunk in all the distress and challenge of Galus right there along with us. And therefore, Kshinigalim, when they are redeemed, when they're returned, then the process of returning is as if God is with us as well. If God is with us in exile, God is also with us when we return. So when we return, it's not only the Heshiv, God will cause us to return. God sitting in Israel, kiviyachol, as if, God causes us to return. God brings us back. No. God is over there outside with us. And so when we come back, he comes back, which is why the pasuk says, Vishav Hashem. Yes, God will also return because he's right there with us in Galus. What a beautiful, comforting, amazing thought that Hashem never leaves our side. Even when we're kicked out, even when we've abandoned him, he never abandons us. God is always there by our side, even in Galus, even in exile, even in punishment. God is always there with us, supporting us, carrying us, so much so, suffering with us, so much so that he has to return along with us with the ingathering of the exiles. It's just a beautiful thought, and I think one that is very comforting for us, reminding us that it may seem in our mind as if there's great distance between us, Hashem. As next week's parsha will say, Astir Panai, God will hide his face from us. He'll be hidden, but he'll be right there. If we look, we search, we feel, we'll understand that God is right by our side, even when it feels like he's not. One more point Rashi makes here, a beautiful point. Not only does God stay with us in exile and return with us when it's time, but va'od yesh lomar. There's another reason why God stays with us in exile, not just to comfort us, but shegado kibbutz galios uvekoshi kilu atzmo tzarech lios ochez biyado mamish ish mimekomo. It's to teach us that the ingathering of the exiles is not as easy or as obvious as it would seem. We're all experiencing this right now, sitting in Silver Spring, watching kibbutz galios to Israel, and yet we're still here. Hashem recognized that taking people out of their homes and out of their lives that they had known for thousands of years to bring them back to the land, even though it's redemption, even though it's there, even though it's signs from Hashem and Nisim and Niflos and the thing we've been davening for and waiting for so many years, it's very, very hard. Hard to rip ourselves out from those countries where we've settled and established ourselves and just suddenly return to Israel. And so when he does that, he's going to have to be there right along with us, poking each of us, pulling us one at a time. So it can't describe as if God is in Israel bringing us back, but as if God is right there in Galus, going door to door, knocking, saying, okay, come with me, I'm dragging you, I'm taking you. I think it's a Rashi we can all relate to very well. And we all have our reasons for being in Galus, we all have our reasons for being in exile, not going back to the land. Hashem is there, pulling us, tugging at us, trying to get us there, recognizing how difficult it is. It's not an obvious thing for any one of us, but it's a goal that we should all aspire to one day. Have a good day, everyone.